What's up everyone, Thralls Metal here once again. I'm Croc-Nick and I have an album review for you. So one that I had on my list in terms of ones that I was definitely excited for February is the newest EP from Cult of Luna, the Raging River EP. This came out on the 5th of February on Red Creek Recordings, which is a new label, and the only band they have signed on there is Cult of Luna, so I don't know, this might actually be run by them. I'm not entirely sure, but it's a new label and I know nothing about it other than this is on it. This band formed in Umeå, Sweden in 1998. They have 7 full lengths. This is only their second EP, and initially they started off as kind of a atmospheric sludge band and have slowly over time sort of morphed into a juggernaut of post-metal. In fact, I would have to say they're among my favorite post-metal bands right now. In fact, if you've been watching us for a while, their last album, A Dawn to Fear, was actually on my year-end list, and it was up there pretty damn high. Now, when I say EP, generally you think short offerings. This is not a short offering. This is a 40-minute EP, so you can almost call it an album, but it is only 5 tracks, so I don't know, kind of that gray area there. Now, much like A Dawn to Fear, this was mixed and mastered by Magnus Lindberg, their guitarist, and honestly, there really isn't much of a difference in terms of the production at all. In fact, a lot of this feels like carryover from A Dawn to Fear. Opening track, 3 bridges, it pretty much has almost the exact same sort of feel. It is very atmospheric, very layered. This band has 3 guitarists and they know how to use them in terms of just layering sounds, whether it be like distant melodies, clean melodies, a big sludgy chug, and believe me, there are still little bits of that sludginess still to them. This song opens up with almost kind of like an industrial beat, and this does pretty much what I love about post-metal. It builds in layers. You get this kind of dissonant, clean melody, and then you start hearing this sort of industrial tribal drum start to build up. Then you're greeted to another layer of guitars, and then a layer of like droning keys and such, which on this album, the keys are very prominent. They do a lot to build the atmosphere. In fact, there are some parts where they kind of like just really take over and become like the heavy focal point of the song. Now, what I love about the song is the peaks and valleys, the builds and rebuilds. These guys have always been really excellent at that. They catch your attention with a big hook, then drop out into like almost sort of like droning silence with like weird clean melodies, and then build up to like giant crescendos. And that's the thing, like it doesn't build to just one. There are multiple sections on here, and it kind of defies like a verse chorus sort of sense. And if you listen to bands like Isis, Neurosis, well, you're kind of used to that style. These guys do it exceptionally well, and all harsh vocals pretty much on here. The frontman still kind of retains his hardcore-ish bark, again, harking back to like, you know, Neurosis and such, except without like Scott Kelly's sort of grumbled cleans. But there are clean vocals on here though. But they're not done by their frontman, Mark Lanigan, which I was kind of surprised by. I've known for his work in Screaming Trees, Queens of the Stone Age, and a litany of other bands. Comes in and croons his balls off on the almost intermission-ish track called Inside a Dream. It's easily the most different song on here. It is a nice little breakup too. The opening 2 tracks and the last 2 tracks definitely are more Cult of Luna-ish. This is a definite break in terms of the style. It almost has this kind of bluesy feel and American folk, but that sort of changes as the song goes on. This is the shortest song on here, 3.5 minutes, but it actually has an interesting sort of flow. Like it starts off with just the clean vocals, which I was shocked, and I actually had to look up who was singing there. And I was kind of shocked to hear it was Mark Lanigan, because he usually has like a lower baritone. He's kind of up a bit, and surprisingly, he's not as gravelly on this one. Generally, I compare him to like, you know, Tom Waits in terms of like that gruff delivery, but there's like a soulfulness to it. All that's intact, except it's a little bit cleaner. And as the song progresses, it kind of enters like Radiohead-ish territory. There's pianos, there's like soft ghost notes in the drums. It's a very laid back and chill track, and a bit of a welcome break in terms of like being just beaten over the head with like really heavy post-metal. But as soon as you get into I Remember, you are back to the heavy, doom-laden, dreary, glum, all those adjectives style that is Cult of Luna. That song immediately brings back the heavy energy, and it even has a really cool sort of clean instrumental break before, again, pummeling you. Now, one interesting thing that these guys like to do, and it's kind of throughout most of their more recent albums, is how they build the song. Like, they will build in increments, and you can actually hear it being constructed, and how they'll shift. like one part will be built on one riff, a melody will come in on top of that, and then another melody on top of that, and then the first melody will drop out, and that second melody becomes the bulk of the melody again, like the root. It's very interesting, and it's really cool just to see them building these layers, because when you throw in the keys on top of that, you have just this wall of sound production. And there's even a part, and I remember, where the bass kind of takes the whole foreground there. It brings in a sludgier tone. And it's just kind of cool how they try a lot of different dynamics throughout all their songs. Even the drum work, you know, you think of post-metal, and generally most post-metal you kind of think along the lines of like doom metal. It's generally very slow. The drum work in here is very active. There's lots of cool fills everywhere too. But honestly, the big standout for me was the last track. Wave After Wave is the longest track on here, over 12 minutes, and this one is interesting because when I think of a 12-minute song, it's like, okay, this is probably going to have a lot of different movements to it. Actually, that wasn't true. This song pretty much stays in one solid like pocket groove for most of it. And the synths become one of the most prominent things in there. They're kind of droning, kind of like 80s-ish, but darker, because I mean, it's post-metal, it's kind of dark and bleak anyway. And it's kind of up-tempo. It's more of a mover. It's not like a plodding kind of dirge of a song, even though the mood on it is definitely kind of dirge-like. But it's interesting that it's not very riff driven. In fact, most of the guitars are sort of just layers of droning dissonance. And then under that, you actually have this synth melody that really carries it. It kind of gives it like a feel like a band like Hum, especially their most recent album. It has more of like an alternative feel. Now, there is a section on here where that kind of drops out and gives you a bit of like a doom-laden riff, but it goes right back into that groove again and it kind of sticks to it. Now, towards the end, though, there is a part where it brings in a marching snare, and it has one of the coolest transitions, I think, on the album. This little marching snare section kind of keeps building tension on this next part, and then it breaks into this slower groove, and the transition is just buttery smooth. It just does not lose a step at all, and it keeps that marching snare kind of in the background. And I believe one of the guitarists is also an extra percussionist, so this still screams like something they could do live and pull it off really well. I think these guys are really sort of settling into their sound, and I think A Dawn to Fear was sort of a big moment for them in terms of like really just embracing more ambient music, but still sort of retaining those sludgy, heavy riffs. There are plenty of riffs on here, but mostly what you're drawn into is the atmosphere. Like, you can really feel this music. And I think much like most post-metal albums, this is for patient listeners. The song has to sort of unfurl itself in front of you, and you have to wait. But it's worth it, because as these songs keep unveiling, they keep showing you more and more stuff. This is a very immersive listen, and if you like music where you can actually hear the layers being built, like you can almost hear the song being constructed right in front of you, this is definitely something to check out. So overall, I'm going to give this 4 stars. I think this is a killer EP. It's a little bit of a continuation from A Dawn to Fear, which I don't really have a problem with because that album was absolutely amazing. But if you didn't like that album, you probably won't like this one. It's very similar. The production is almost the same. It's Cult of Luna doing what they do well. In terms of like newer stuff they do in there, outside of Mark Lanigan's track on there, not too much. I think the keys might be a little bit more prominent, but not by much, because again, Dawn to Fear kind of really set a benchmark, at least in my opinion, for them. Overall, this is a really just immersive listen. Put it on, jam the whole thing all the way through. It really just kind of works all together. And I think that's a post-metal thing too. Post-metal albums, the really good ones, you can just kind of jam all the way through and it feels like one interesting, immersive listen all together. So if that's your thing, definitely check this out. I actually ordered it probably about halfway through listening to this, so looking forward to that coming to my doorstep. So if you enjoyed this review, give it a thumbs up. If you are new to the channel, subscribe, because we do stuff like this all the time. Don't forget, we got a giveaway going on. Once we hit 4,500 subs, we're giving away a vinyl and 3 CDs, and we're looking forward to giving that away. We just hit 4,200 not too long ago, so it's getting close. So keep subscribing or telling your friends to subscribe. Either way, we appreciate it, and thank you guys very much for that. So with that, I will bid you guys adieu and catch you later.